Hello and welcome to the Don't Shop on Tuesdays Zoom chat. We're your hosts, Jacob and Barrie, joined once again today by Charlie Cooper, activist extraordinaire and tireless worker for people's rights and building people power in a time when that is perhaps at a nadir in comparison to the ongoing challenges that we have with money in politics and oligarchic control of the levers of power. So, thank you so much, Charlie, for joining us again. Look forward to talking with you about what exactly is happening today and what organizing looks like going forward, and how we can connect the dots between actions at the top and what's being felt in people's everyday lives.
Yeah. So obviously, thanks for having me. Obviously, I don't actually know, but I have ideas that I'd like to discuss. And the Get Money Out Maryland that had achieved some success at mobilizing people around the issue of money in politics has been disbanded because we were undermined by liberals, local Maryland liberals and national liberals who I think are afraid of grassroots organizing. So the big nonprofits based in Washington want to keep the power to themselves. Would be a short analysis of it. Um, and we had proposed a solution that involved um, organizing in every state, bringing the issue to every state legislature. We thought we needed a constitutional amendment to overturn not only to overturn the Citizens United decision, but for the first time to guarantee everyone right to vote and to make sure that corporations don't have constitutional rights. Uh, but uh, the national groups want to uh, do the constitutional amendments their way, which is to send out letters and ask people to send them checks and not make any progress. And they haven't made any progress in 8 or 10 years. Um, and
It sounds so just familiar to what we're experiencing now on the national scale and what we have been experiencing, but
Right.
just in terms of fundraise off a problem and then, fight your left flank, fight the people trying to trying to make change harder than you
So
fight the
then,
actual.
I think that the election shows, well, one question is, have we lost traction on the issue of money in politics? Absolutely not. Everyone agrees with this. All the Trump voters, I don't mean all, but 85% of the Trump voters agree with this. 80% of the people that didn't come out to vote agree with this. That's not the issue. The issue is it doesn't drive their vote. What's driving people's votes is they've been living through close to 50 years of austerity, and they're desperate in terms of their own family budgets. And they're sick and tired of it. So they're sick and tired of working multiple jobs. They're sick and tired of healthcare system getting worse and worse, costs going up. They're sick and tired of not being able to afford housing. They're sick and tired of when their car breaks down, the whole family has a crisis. They're sick and tired of all that stuff, and it's affecting a bigger and bigger share of the population. So that when, I'm 77, when I grew up, it was a middle class country, and most people were middle class. And we talked about poverty like, oh, there is poverty. Go somewhere in West Virginia or Arkansas, and you can actually see it. Now, uh, 40, 50% of the people are on the edge of poverty. Um, so, uh, in our little group,
Isn't there something insane like 70% or more of the people would be in America would be bankrupted by less than $1,000
yeah,
unexpected
I don't know what
expenses?
those exact numbers are, but I can tell you that it's something like 40% of the people that have zero wealth or negative wealth. and
That's
so that's pretty drastic. So, uh, what I've concluded, and then the small. At one point, we had 100 active volunteers at the same time. Now we got down to I was the only one working on the issue. So uh, that's not the way to go. And I think the way to go is to find communication channels to explain to um, working class people why the Republicans don't have any plans to help their economic situation. And of course, the problem with that is, do the Democrats have any plans to change their economic situation? Now, actually, I think President Biden did a halfway decent job. I have other issues on which I consider him to be one of the worst presidents ever. Uh,
But
but
there was no communication. Trump comes out lying about everything, repeating himself, tweeting or whatever he calls it, and Biden, what's the expression, hid his light under a bushel. I mean, you need to. The best story wins, and sometimes the best story is saying it over and over and over again, or actually telling people. And he
well,
did not do that.
yeah, and I don't think Biden had the capacity to A, be president, or B, run a campaign. And the Democrats stood around and sucked their thumbs for a long, long time until they they did get rid of him, but it was too late.
But
Not only that, the candidate they put forward for president ran on the politics of joy. Now, if there was an ever a misapprehension of the mood of the country, I would say the politics of joy was deserves some kind of an award.
but
Um,
uh, but going back when you talk, I'm not even talking about the campaign. I'm talking about the 4 years of Biden and what he accomplished and what some people recognize in terms of unions and other things. Even if he didn't have the capacity, the people around him didn't do him any, didn't do it justice. And
yeah,
and
that's true.
you know, and then Trump is taking credit or lying about literally he did not win by a landslide. He didn't even hit 50%. I mean, what is he? 100 million% people approve of what Elon Musk is doing. He is lying and saying it over and over and over
Mhm.
again. And we need better communication.
You're saying the
Well,
Democrats need better
yes.
communication. I when I think Democrats, I'm sorry. Although I'm registered as a Democrat, I don't think but the Democrats need better communication. Uh, yeah, well, they need better actual performance, and they need to be willing and to work in the interest of people and not just in the interest of donors. Now, I would say that they did that with the National Labor Relations Board. They did that in supporting the auto worker strike, although not the railroad strike. They did it especially with competition policy, with antitrust law, which, by the way, Trump seems to be continuing. Um, so they did some things, and in addition to that, when Biden came in, he faced a very, very difficult situation, and it could have gone a lot worse. And basically, every other wealthy country had a worse performance on inflation than the U.S. Uh, but none of that mattered if you don't tell anyone about it, and if you don't explain it, and if you don't lay out a plan. And then the other thing that I believe very much now is that, and Trump gets this, since people are angry and scared, you have to plug into that. I mean, if you and me, I am angry. I'm angry about how people work 40 and 50 and 60 hours a week and they can't make ends meet. Okay.
hmm
But I don't think that Democratic candidates generally come off as angry about that. And, so what they say is, Oh, don't be angry, follow the process. And now that Trump is breaking all these rules and doing all these horrible illegal things, there's a tendency to say, oh, he broke this rule, he broke that rule. People do not give a shit about that. Mostly.
Yeah.
Some people do. I mean, even I do. But mostly, that's just not going to change the political atmosphere. Okay. So you have to
I mean,
people
when you've
know
had,
that you understand where they're coming from.
yeah, I mean, as you said, just in terms of looking at it, if people are going to get angry over rule following and rule breaking, I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
Democrats are the party that let the parliamentarian, the ultimate sort of rules-based property, say
Yeah.
that they couldn't, in fact, help one of their core constituent groups of over 140 million people be alleviated from debt, and the
Uh-huh.
crushing debt crisis that we know that they're in with student loan debt. That couldn't be done. Just couldn't, it
Right.
couldn't happen. It was not within the power of the Democrats because
Got
of
a
rules.
rule,
That's
baby.
what people know rules get them. And so, I just this is constantly. I heard once, someone say that the Democrats treat norms as laws and expect them to be followed, and
Mm-hmm.
the Republicans treat laws as norms and break them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, where we're in, is we have people changing the laws and the norms right now in real time, and a retreat back to the rules is a completely you've completely misread the situation. The rules are what got us here. The rules, people using the rules rather than figuring out how to
Mm-hmm.
help people instead. And I think people just have this, we've got this credibility gap that we really have a problem with, in that, as you've pointed out, while we one issue is communicating to people that the Republicans are actively doing damage, and that politics does in fact matter, and that what they're doing is hurting them, and drawing that line. But we have a massive credibility gap, that people then don't believe that the Democrats are going to do any better. And when you have things like Chuck,
Right.
leader of the Democratic Senate, you know, just give up with no, using the only leverage that they had, give up and just say there's nothing we can do, and we're not going to do anything. Why? How do we inspire that hope too, that people can, aren't just going to sort of tune out, because that seems like a
So
more common response.
I'd like to go over a list of points that I think we should be educating the public on. And
Mhm.
I hope I can go through this quickly and not talk too much, but human nature being what it is. All right.
Have you
So
noticed?
tax cuts for the rich are going to hurt working people.
Yes.
Musk government spending cuts uh, are not, he's lying about the cuts, but the cuts they're actually planning, uh, like 880 billion in Medicaid cuts over 10 years, um, are going to be devastating, and 1/5 of all U.S. residents receive Medicaid. That's scary myself. Uh, Musk has taken your personal info, and he can use it to, and his competitors' info, and he can use it to enrich himself and for corruption. Uh, they're firing Social Security workers, and they're going to make it harder to apply and get your checks. And people are going to miss out on their checks. It's going to be, I mean, I think that's going to be the biggest single thing. And I don't quite understand why they're dumb enough to do that, but we'll see if they do what they do. Um, Cutting 83,000 jobs out of about 500,000 at the Department of Veterans Affairs. How is that not going to impact people's care? 90% of the employees are direct care workers. They shut down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau so that bankers and scammers can more easily take your money, and a whole bunch of other ways in which rich people will get a break and you won't. Uh, They are trying to neuter the National Labor Relations Board so that people can't form unions. Driving up tariffs could, in the long run, if done right, create more jobs in the U.S., but Trump's
It
not
would
very
have to be coupled with an industrial policy, though, in
right,
order to
right,
be done.
and he's killing industrial policy.
And you
So,
can't have a different idea every other day.
by the way, that's something Biden did well, is he did put in place certain industrial policies that are good policies, like renewable energy and the chips stuff,
Yeah.
which could be a good policy if the tech industry were structured correctly. Laying off all these federal workers and cutting all these contracts probably is going to pave the way for crony capitalist contracts to Trump's wealthy contributors. Cutting off research into cancer and other diseases is
Just
stupid.
cutting off research generally at the National Institutes of Health, at the National Science Foundation, at
Right.
NOAA, at EPA. I mean,
Johns
we're
Hopkins.
seeing a huge brain drain, and well, we have yet to see whether there's the drain yet, but there's certainly, I can attest that there's extremely low morale at a lot of these places right
And
now, and that
what about Johns
it's
Hopkins?
already rippling out into Johns Hopkins has started firing people based upon their grants being removed. Columbia has, let alone the other civil liberties stuff. They've also begun firing people. They're not. They've canceled all their grants and fellowship training programs. I know several universities that are just planning on not admitting grad students this coming year. So, what does that mean for the
Yeah.
overall pipeline of all of these highly technical fields and
Hmm.
and the sort of future of science in America?
And when you
Now,
devastate Medicaid, for example, not only are you harming the people on it, you're devastating rural health care. You're devastating. I mean, it will just explode throughout the country. I mean, if you think you're only sticking it to a group of people, why anyone would want to do that, I don't know. But they're taking food from hungry children. But you're just not hurting the people on it. You are hurting the whole entire healthcare system, which is terrible at best.
right. Stopping pollution enforcement is going to harm your health. They've already deregulated 10 or 15 different things that I could go through. And then using your tax dollars to buy cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency is a worthless scam, in my view. We could debate about that, but um, the U.S. has a strategic oil reserve. Why? Because oil is useful. We have a strategic grain reserve because really wheat and oats and stuff they have a use. You can figure out the use. What is the use of cryptocurrency? It's to evade the law. That's really what it's for. Um, and then Trump is minting his own meme coins, which the SEC ruled wouldn't be subject to regular oversight. So that's my quick run through, and I have more details on almost all of
And
these.
that doesn't even include, Charlie. I mean, one of the things to note is how many of these are actually, admittedly, you haven't covered maybe some of the more sort of civil areas, but like how much of an economic class warfare attack, this is, and how concentrated, and selective it is. And I think one of the other scary issues here is that we're now also seeing that Musk has line access to treasury payments and has come in. There was, I think over the weekend, there was talks about them making claims that certain recipients were deceased when they weren't, and just going into individual bank accounts and removing money. I mean,
I
that
saw a Seattle Times article about a guy who did get his money back, but they decided he was dead, and they took $5,000 out of his bank account, and they cut him off Medicare.
And you had Trump
that level
going
of
on
that.
television with the, we have all these millions of people that are 300 years old, because these young kids that also don't have clearance are coming in. They didn't understand COBOL and the coding,
Right.
and they didn't understand that 150-year-old, there are no 150-year-old recipients on Medicare, and right now Musk wants to have a financial business.
Well,
And
they got rid of the people who could have explained it to them.
yeah, they also got rid of the people that were handling bird flu. They also got rid of the people that keep planes from crashing into each other. I mean, it's now, let's go. You said we've got to connect policies with voting. And if I may, Democrats, call me at any time. But if you are running with Tim Walz, you just talk about what he's done in Minnesota. You don't showcase the Cheneys. I mean, I don't understand why the Democrats cannot get this story straight. I mean, you had such a great running mate who calmly deflected everything. They talked about trans, and you go, not my business. And he brought Weird out, and he's done so much, and they showcase. I mean, I just don't understand.
You're saying they didn't showcase his accomplishments for the people of Minnesota. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, or him, or him. He's just and she started campaigning with the Cheneys.
Well, one person that is, I mean, yes, it's totally absurd, but one person who is rising to this moment and does suggest as well that this communicating and making real and concrete the effects of these policies and actions in the Republican plan, putting a face to that and going even into very red districts is Bernie Sanders on his anti-oligarchy tour, joined now I think by AOC, that the two of them have really been specific and have brought that fight to the Republican areas. And
what actually Tim Walz is doing that too.
Tim Walz is doing that too.
He's going into red districts where the congressperson refuses to have a town hall. Andy Harris won't have a town hall.
Andy Harris never, even in good times. I mean, even when we weren't in collapse. But the Republican Congress people are being told not to have town halls. I mean, they've been advised not to talk. And I say this over and over again. They work for us. They are, you cannot say I'm not meeting with my bosses, but they are.
Well, so what I'm asking people to think about in the things that you do, I assume that people watching this conversation are going to be taking actions. They're going to be writing to or calling their Congress people. They're going to be getting out in the street. They're going to be going to meetings. And my point is, let's have our rallies in neighborhoods. Let's not just have them all in front of City Hall or something. Let's have them in the neighborhoods where the people are suffering economically. Okay. And I don't just mean poverty, I mean strategically selecting them because there are neighborhoods where people voted for Trump because they thought he would help them economically, and now he's hurting them economically. We need to go tell them. And yes, they're going to feel it. They're going to feel certain of these effects when it happens. But I think it's very important to tell them ahead of time that Republicans did this, not Democrats. Okay. And this is how you could react to it. This is what we should have been doing instead. So I think where we go and who we talk to, and are there organizations that can really get beyond the usual progressives and stop talking to ourselves, and and I don't know, it's a lot of hard work to do this kind of organizing. And I'm not
Do you
saying I
think
know exactly how to do it, but I think that
so? Part of what I'm hearing,
the
Charlie, is
labor
like that.
union, the labor, the Amazon Workers Union, for example, the Starbucks union organizing, those are examples of the kind of things that we should be supporting.
Chris Smalls is a friend of ours. He was
Oh,
very,
yeah, really?
yeah. And
Great.
but then there was an election in July, and there's a new president there. But
Yeah,
Chris Smalls told Jacob and me in February that Trump was going to win. I
yeah,
mean, and he also told us that Amazon wouldn't come to the table. That
right.
you can't. They wouldn't negotiate, and he wasn't allowed to say, don't you. Ever since I think the farm workers would combined a boycott with a strike, you if you're going on strike or you're a union, you can't advocate economic, um, an
That's a law.
it's we were told by UAW that, we were told by Amazon Labor Union that. I'm
Hmm.
not a labor lawyer, but they're very cautious. Not, but you can say don't shop on Tuesday. I mean, you can say we're going on strike and don't shop on Tuesday.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
and I I'm wondering, Charlie. So part of it is sort of a power analysis around where sort of the administration, where what groups of either voters or workers, or industry, provide sort of key areas of support in local spaces, and going to those and sort of doing rallies and explainers and things in those spaces, to try to sort of peel off support where for the, and as you were saying as well, to inoculate that we have to go and do it beforehand, so that when we've called it out, then when it happens they'll recognize it, and that's how they'll
right,
interpret the event.
right.
If you come back afterwards and say, well, see, the reason that the bad thing happened to you was because, and if because of other people did it, and if you just listened to me beforehand, you would have known. We got to get to them beforehand. um you know but it seems to
There's
me
not
that
much
in
time.
part, but there is time, but it seems to me in part that what we're actually really aided in this moment by the fact that the Republicans are so mask off, that they're specifically not going into, they're being instructed not to talk with anyone. They're not going at 90%, right, of what they could do, and maybe, provide some fig leaf cover. They're just going for it right now. And it's compressing the time span. It's meaning that they do it very obviously out in the open, and it compresses the time span on which these things are being felt. So there is a window, but it feels like we need to definitely be moving during this first period rather quickly.
Yeah.
Um,
So what are the organizational structures available to do that?
so we've got, I mean, as you were saying, to some level, unions. There's at least in Baltimore, there's like these various rapid response groups that are coming about, that I think seem to be at least slightly less progressive and white in their at least initial compositional makeup that I've been seeing when attending. So that might be some level of avenue. Another thing that I'm thinking, though, is that we need, it's not just information, like services or something else. Yeah, I think back a lot to, just reading about the old labor union movements during the
Mhm.
progressive era, and then into, to the Great Depression, then the labor movements, that a lot of those movements didn't just frame it in politics, and that, or they didn't just frame it in electoral politics. They offered other educational or social services, or things that would allow people to come there, like daycare and stuff like that, or book clubs, or
You're saying they
something
had
that's
singing and
social.
poetry and
they
and
had they had
childcare.
more enrichment, so that it wasn't just a slog
Right.
of work, of more work to go to build these other things,
But
that
it's
there
building
that
a community. Well, I'm
yeah.
definitely going to the Rapid Response Network this Saturday at 2640 St. Paul and see what's happening
Excellent.
there.
Also, I
Excellent.
think we seek out Democrats that sort of have it. I'd say, I'm not partisan. I'd say Republicans if I knew of any. But look at Andy Bashir in Kentucky. The two senators are Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul. And here he is in a red state, I think, doing more than some blue state governors, and I'm a strategist, and I watched Tim Walz come from Nowheresville on social media to become the running mate because he had the communication skills. I mean, we can't be bullies. That's not our constituency. But somehow, if we make something not cool, like weird, or like if you're driving a Tesla, if it doesn't kill you, it's still stupid. I mean, if we could draw the story of, and I think Walz does it well. I think, obviously Bernie does it well. AOC is doing it well. But to come out and say, I passed the continuing resolution because, I don't know, well, why not? And then have Trump congratulate you is not the story. So I think we seek out people and radiate out from there. We also know people, there's a group in West Virginia, there's, people doing things, environmentalists are doing things, you find local people. And we also believe in a growing economic alliance as well as an effective tool.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
one thing that needs to happen is we have to have the education materials ready to give to people. I don't know how much they should be in print. I don't know if there's a way to reach the target audience over social media. I'm pretty much out of social media right this minute, but I would get back in if I thought I had a way.
I don't know how much. I mean, social media, I think, has some utility, but it is a little bit of enemy territory, at least for a lot of the most commonly used ones at this point. I do think that there's a real value to, we need to act fast and we need to make replicatable. But I do think that the building block is in person at these, events, and getting, groups of people in person that are willing to do things again.
Don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, like unions. I mean, when Jacob and we approach organizations that are already organizing, that are already doing things, we say just add Don't Shop on Tuesday, or add this local. One of our allies stopped a development in a very wooded area in Harford County, and they then worked with Chesapeake Bay Foundation and some lawyers, and the organization grew. So my number one advice is accept everyone, build the biggest coalitions you can find, and let everyone in. And right now, I think there are a lot of disillusioned Republicans that will join in organization, and organizing and protesting. I could be wrong.
Well, I hope you're right. I think maybe I could be useful in trying to develop some of these educational materials.
No one knows it better than you. I mean, your analysis and your insight is invaluable. But I'm just saying,
specificity as well is fantastic.
And you're I'm pretty sure one person. So I'm just saying, if we find groups that can just expand it geometrically.
Right. Well,
I think in terms of materials, Charlie, as well, the key is you had a huge list of things that are going to affect people. Drilling down a little bit more, obviously, into some of those areas would be interesting, to provide even more specific numbers or scale. But even more important, and I think what we've talked about before, is that there need to be faces of that part of that is getting those facts filtered through specific individualized local community stories. that's how they're going to be impactful, right? To a local community, as if someone in their community is the living example of what it is that's being said, is the canary in the coal mine, is whatever analogy you want to use. But if it's even a real example that's happening over there, can be in a different community, can be externalized enough, I think, to allow some people to be like, well, bad things happen in the world, but so X, Y, or Z person's looking out for us, so we'll be okay. You need it close enough to them that they can feel it. And so figuring out how to solicit, contact, create those stories from those pieces of data and examples, I think is really important.
So I did do some more drilling down today, and I'll send you that.
Okay.
But then finding the, so like the Seattle guy where the money was taken out of his account, and he's actually lucky because he was able to get it straightened out in only a couple of weeks. But he said he went into a Social Security office, and there were just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in there, and it was chaos. And that's before they fire everyone they're going to fire.
And it's primarily Republicans. They come in and they put in people in charge of the departments that are antithetical to the mission, and then they can go back and see it doesn't work. See, government. So if you don't believe in government, then stay out. I mean, we don't need you if you just want to destroy it. And
so I looked for articles to illustrate my points, and when I got to the EPA, I found everything I needed right on the EPA website, and they were saying, "Isn't this great? Already we've deregulated power plants, oil and gas, mercury, and toxics, auto emissions, greenhouse gases, particulates in our air, and coal ash." And they're like, "Whee!"
It is fascinating sometimes how
some
far
coal ash. I could breathe some. If I was, and they let me use the kind of plastic straw I wasn't allowed to use before, so I could, sniff the coal ash directly into my nostrils.
Can I do product placement? I get the thermal cups with the tops that have the straw already in it.
Uh-huh.
Problem solved.
Okay.
I mean, no, it's practically beyond parody. But I think that, one of the things that is, when we started out this conversation, it might seem impossible that people have not sort of heard or seen or know what's going on. But with the rising sort of levels of precarity, with the ever increasing workloads, with the, encapsulated, and sort of atomized, both society in general and media streams that we have, it is the case that a lot of people, don't know that that's what the EPA is doing, don't know that people are coming for their Social Security, or haven't managed to put together the few steps that it actually takes, because they're busy and they're busy and they're angry, but they don't know where to direct it. And so I think connecting those dots together to local people, local communities, and getting people that information and getting it beforehand, can really act to when these shocks, when this damage, when this trauma happens. And tragically, we're seeing it now, the hammer's swinging already. We just haven't felt the impact on some of these. That people know how to interpret that and where to direct their anger in a way that's going to allow them to recover and allow for us to actually build the power needed to, slow down, stop, and hopefully eventually reverse the damage that this kleptocracy and deepening oligarchy are bringing. So
now,
I really want to.
There still has to be another side that gets itself together, and we don't know if that'll ever happen. And we don't know if they're willing to give up their donors.
Yeah. Well, part of the, I think, as Barrie alluded to, part of the task there, simultaneous, and I think letting people know it works for this too, is that if you get people angry and understanding of this situation, you're going to get some people you're going to get fresh blood in there running for Congress. You're going to get people fed up with continuing to think that nothing can be done and continue to support people, you know, who aren't doing anything to protect them and aren't using the levers of power. And so, you know, it's a multi-step thing. We're gonna have to braid together a lot of efforts, obviously, in order to dig ourselves, in order to climb out of this hole that we're currently in. But people are going to get hurt regardless. And so it's really important that we give them the information so that they can understand what this administration is doing and how that really is hurting them, and how joining together can create action that can help people. So really want to thank you for your
can I just say one positive thing?
Yeah.
And if people know me, that's unusual. And I just want to stress that we're sitting here in Maryland, but this is everywhere. Find your Charlie, find your expert, find your indefatigable, tireless, I've trouble with that. Tireless advocate. But last year we had an election in Baltimore City, and the man who bought the storied Baltimore Sun to destroy it, he has a nephew that has a restaurant conglomerate. And they put a lot of money in the election, in the Baltimore City election, and every candidate that they supported lost. Everyone.
And their ballot issues lost.
Yes. Well, one did. One passed.
But it goes to show that even in a time, if you've organized and informed, you know, the things that they're doing are unpopular. No matter how many times they say that it is popular, these are not popular things. They're going to become less popular as the actual fallout from what is happening from their actions begin to settle and be felt by people. And if we can inform them and organize them and make it real, we have a chance of, you know, building both political and economic power towards creating change.
And you have to look everywhere. School board elections. It's not just the Congress and not just the president. It's everywhere.
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's probably too many, but I got 12 bullets here. And it seems to me it would lead to 12 flyers, 12 sheets, 12 computer screens. It would be great if they were illustrated, but I'm completely hopeless. I mean, I can find a picture and put it on there, but I can't create any graphics.
Okay, that's a call out to artists. But Charlie, we'll include that when we send out your video. We'll include links to that.
Okay, I will send you the latest, and I'll keep working on it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.
We really appreciate you taking the time, Charlie. We appreciate everyone for listening in, and we can't wait to, you know, continue the fight going forward and to hear what everyone has to say and how they're going to get involved to continue building this power and making sure that this, you know, fall into oligarchy, further deepening fall into oligarchy is as brief as possible. So thanks once again, and until next time, don't shop on Tuesday.